George Russell has survived betrayal, financial ruin, and even an assassin's bullet. But his greatest battle is only just beginning. In the Gilded Age, Season 4, the world he built with his own hands threatens to collapse, not because of money or enemies in the shadows, but because the one person he trusted the most may no longer stand by his side. Bertha Russell has won her crown among New York's elite, but at what cost? As George begins to question his loyalty to her and hunt down the mysterious figure who tried to kill him, the stage is set for a season filled with dangerous secrets, broken vows, and rivalries that could tear apart not just the Russell family, but the entire world of high society. Season 3 ended with a chilling moment that no one could have predicted. After all of Bertha's victories, her daughter Gladys safely married into one of the most powerful families, her own triumph over Mrs. Astor, and her successful rise into the highest circles of New York society, her marriage suddenly crumbled before our eyes. George, the man who had always stood silently but powerfully at her side, finally revealed the truth. He is no longer certain he loves her. His bitterness poured out, fueled by her ruthless ambition, her willingness to trade their daughters' happiness for status, and her constant drive for control. It was the kind of revelation that struck like lightning, not just shocking Bertha, but shaking the audience too. Because for 3 seasons, we watched George bend, compromise, and even risk his fortune for the woman he adored. And now, all of a sudden, that love feels poisoned. But this is not just the story of a failing marriage, it's the story of 2 empires colliding. Bertha represents the dream of unstoppable ambition, the hunger to rule the drawing rooms of Fifth Avenue, while George represents loyalty, honor, and strength. When these 2 forces collide, there can only be destruction in their wake. And yet, even as Bertha's personal life shatters, a far darker question lingers in the shadows. Who tried to kill George Russell? Because let's not forget, George came closer to death this season than ever before. Over-leveraging his railroad empire nearly destroyed him financially. But it was the assassin's bullet that nearly ended everything for good. Shot by a bitter enemy, George was saved only by the quick actions of Dr. William Kirkland and Marion, who both put themselves at risk to keep him alive. But here's the terrifying part. The identity of the shooter was never revealed. Was it a rival businessman trying to gain control of the railroads? Was it someone within New York society, desperate to remove George as an obstacle? Or could it'll even be tied to someone closer to home? Someone with motives that cut deeper than money. George's decision to hunt down the truth will not only put him back in danger, but it will also drag the entire Russell family into a conspiracy larger than anything they've faced before. The mystery of the assassin is not just a side story, it is the heart of Season 4. The thread that will unravel friendships, test loyalties, and reveal who among the glittering faces of New York is hiding blood on their hands. At the same time, Bertha is not about to surrender. Her marriage may be falling apart, but if we know anything about Bertha Russell, it is that she never accepts defeat. Season 4 will see her fighting not only for George's heart, but also against a dangerous rival. Rumors already suggest that another woman may step forward as a potential love interest for George, forcing Bertha to fight battles she never expected. And this rival is no stranger. Mrs. Winterton, the former maid who clawed her way up into society and has always looked at Bertha's throne with hungry eyes, may finally get her chance to strike. With Oscar foolishly aligning himself with her, Bertha could find herself betrayed on every side. Can she keep her crown, protect her marriage, and still hold her family together? Or has she finally reached the limits of what even she can control? The answers will not come easily, because every move Bertha makes will come at a cost. And every step George takes to discover the truth behind his shooter will bring him closer to betrayal. Not just by strangers, but by the very people who claim to love him. The brilliance of the Gilded Age is that it never gives us simple villains or heroes. Bertha may be ruthless, but she is also the very reason the Russells stand among the elite. George may be honorable, but his silence and compromises have allowed Bertha's hunger to grow unchecked. And now, in Season 4, the cracks in their world will finally shatter. With Marion and Larry preparing for their long-awaited wedding, Peggy and Dr. Kirkland fighting against his overbearing mother, and Agnes standing ready to protect society from pretenders like Mrs. Winterton. Every storyline is set to collide. But at the center of it all is George Russell, caught between the woman he once loved and the mysterious figure who tried to end his life. And as the stakes rise higher than ever, the question remains: can George survive both the enemies outside his home and the betrayal brewing within it? If Season 3 left us with one haunting question, it is this: who pulled the trigger on George Russell? Because the truth is, That single moment defines everything that will come next. George has always been a man of power, someone who thrives in the boardroom and controls his empire with sheer force of will. But now, after being nearly killed, that sense of control is shattered. What's more dangerous than a man with endless wealth and influence? A man with nothing to lose? And that is exactly who George is becoming in season 4. He isn't just a husband questioning his wife's loyalty, nor a businessman trying to keep his empire afloat. He is now a man obsessed with vengeance, determined to uncover the face behind the gun. And as history has shown us time and time again, when powerful men chase shadows, they often find more than they bargained for. The truth is, George has no shortage of enemies. In the ruthless world of the 1880s, rival rail magnates, politicians, and financiers would all benefit from his downfall. The panic of nearly losing his railroad empire created countless rivals eager to snatch up pieces of his crumbling fortune. Some of them may have even seen an opportunity not just to hurt his wallet, but to erase him entirely. Yet, what makes the mystery so chilling is that the assassin's identity remains completely hidden. This isn't the work of a common thug. Whoever ordered the attempt on George's life is powerful, careful, and has motives that go far beyond money. George knows this, and his decision to hunt down the truth will not be a clean or safe journey. It will drag him deeper into a world of corruption, bribery, and betrayal, where allies are few and enemies are hidden behind smiles at society dinners. And then there is Bertha. Season 4 will not only force her to reckon with George's obsession, but also with the cracks in her own carefully constructed life. For so long, she has been unstoppable, a woman who built her way into the most exclusive rooms of New York by sheer force of will. But for the first time, we saw her lose something she could not buy or command: George's heart. In season 3's finale, his words cut deeper than any rival's insult ever could. To hear him admit that her ambition has poisoned their marriage was not just devastating, it was a turning point. Because Bertha thrives on control, on strategy, on bending the world to her design. But how can she strategize against a husband who has fallen out of love? That is the battle she now faces. And it will only grow more dangerous when whispers begin to circle that George may find comfort in another woman. The name on everyone's lips: Mrs. Winterton. Yes, the same Mrs. Winterton who has always eyed Bertha's throne with envy. The same woman whose rise from maid to socialite has shocked society. And the same woman who has no shame in pursuing power by any means necessary. In season 4, she may finally get her chance, not through society parties or cheap tricks, but through George himself. With Oscar already foolishly aligning himself with her, Mrs. Winterton could position herself as both George's ally and Bertha's nightmare. Imagine the torment for Bertha, fighting to keep her place in society while also fighting to hold on to her husband. This isn't just rivalry, it's war. And in that war, every move Bertha makes risks exposing her deepest fear: that everything she built will crumble without George at her side. But let's not forget, this is not just Bertha and George's story. The ripples of their struggles spread through every corner of the series. Take Oscar, for example. His decision to merge forces with Mrs. Winterton is not just reckless, it is catastrophic. In his desperation for power and security, he has aligned himself with the one person who can destroy everything the Russells stand for. He believes this alliance will strengthen his position, but in truth, it makes him vulnerable to manipulation. Mrs. Winterton is no fool. She has always used those around her as stepping stones, and Oscar may soon realize that by tying himself to her, he has tied himself to his own ruin. Yet, his downfall will not only destroy him, it will ripple through society, threatening the fragile balance that Bertha worked so hard to maintain. Meanwhile, the hunt for the assassin forces George into dangerous alliances of his own. Determined to find the person behind the bullet, he will enter a shadowy world of secret deals and whispered threats. This is where the Gilded Age shines, because behind the glamour of gowns and grand balls lies a city built on corruption. Political bosses, rival railroad men, even members of his own social circle, all could be suspects. And George, with his relentless drive, will stop at nothing to uncover the truth. But here is the tragedy. The deeper he digs, the more he risks alienating those closest to him. Already estranged from Bertha, his obsession could push her even further away. Already fragile from his brush with death, he may end up putting his life in danger once again. It is the kind of spiral that only ends in one of two ways: triumph or tragedy. And in the Gilded Age, neither is ever guaranteed. At the same time, Peggy and Dr. Kirkland offer us a bittersweet contrast. Their engagement may seem like a shining light, a rare promise of happiness, but even they are not safe from turmoil. Kirkland's overbearing mother looms over their relationship like a storm cloud, determined to tear them apart. And while their romance gave us one of the most uplifting moments of Season 3, it seems Season 4 will test them like never before. Because in this world, love is never simple. It is always entangled with status, with society, with family expectations. And for Peggy, who has endured trauma after trauma, the threat of losing the happiness she fought so hard for will be heartbreaking to watch. Still, the center of Season 4 remains clear: the mystery of who tried to kill George, the betrayal within his marriage, and the dangerous rise of Mrs. Winterton. These threads will intertwine into a season where every character faces a test of loyalty, ambition, and survival. Because in the grand world of the Gilded Age, nothing is ever as it seems. Enemies wear the faces of friends, alliances shift with the wind, and love itself becomes a weapon. And as George hunts his assassin and Bertha fights to hold her crown, the glittering world of New York society may finally begin to crack under the weight of its own secrets. The greatest danger in the Gilded Age Season 4 may not come from bullets, but from secrets. Because the deeper George digs into the attempt on his life, the more we will see just how fragile this so-called Golden Age truly is. Behind every glittering ballroom, every grand dinner, and every carefully chosen gown lies a city built on corruption, greed, and ambition. New York society presents itself as polished and perfect, but just beneath the surface is rot, and George is about to peel it all back. The assassination attempt was not random, and it was not desperate, it was calculated. Someone with resources, power, and knowledge wanted George gone, and whoever it was is still hiding in plain sight. This means that every handshake, every polite smile, every toast at a dinner party could belong to someone who already tried to take his life once, and might try again. That constant sense of paranoia will not only shape George's choices, but will also poison his relationships, leaving him isolated when he needs allies the most. And here is the cruel irony. The one person he should lean on, his wife, Bertha, may be the one person he feels he cannot trust. For Bertha, the nightmare is twofold. On the one hand, she is watching her marriage dissolve in real time, with George cold and distant, withholding the love and loyalty that once defined their union. On the other hand, she is hearing the whispers that another woman, Mrs. Winterton, may be stepping into her husband's life. Imagine the torment of a woman who spent years clawing her way into the highest levels of society, only to find herself threatened not by Mrs. Astor or rival families, but by a former maid with a taste for revenge. Season 4 will pit Bertha and Mrs. Winterton against one another in a battle unlike anything we've seen before. Because this is not just about status anymore, it's about George. It's about who truly owns his heart and who will stand at his side when the world comes crashing down. And if Mrs. Winterton manages to seduce George, even just with kindness or sympathy in his darkest moments, Bertha's carefully built empire could collapse. After all, what power does she truly hold without her husband standing behind her? That question will haunt her every step of the way, making this season as much about her survival as his. Meanwhile, Oscar's betrayal cannot be ignored. His alliance with Mrs. Winterton is more than a foolish social maneuver, is a knife aimed directly at the Russells. Oscar has always been portrayed as self-serving, vain, and calculating, but never outright cruel. Yet, in joining hands with a woman who despises Bertha, he has crossed a line that could not only destroy his own prospects, but also unleash chaos on the very society he claims to protect. Season 4 will expose the consequences of this decision in brutal fashion. As Oscar realizes that Mrs. Winterton is not a partner, but a predator. He believes he is using her, but in truth, she is using him. And by the time he recognizes the trap, it may already be too late. His downfall will serve as a cautionary tale, reminding us that in this world, ambition without loyalty is a one-way ticket to ruin. While the Russells grapple with betrayal and suspicion, Marion and Larry step into the spotlight as a rare beacon of hope. Their reconciliation at the end of Season 3 was one of the most satisfying moments of the series, offering us a glimpse of genuine love in a show otherwise dominated by ambition and deceit. But even their happiness will not be without trials. Rumors suggest that their wedding will not happen until the finale of Season 4, which means the entire season will be filled with preparations, negotiations, and the constant risk of sabotage. Because in this world, even love cannot exist without interference. Bertha may see Marion as a bridge to Larry, someone who can help repair her fractured bond with George. But at the same time, others in society may see their union as an opportunity. To strike a wedding meant to symbolize peace could instead become a battlefield, as alliances are tested and old grudges resurface. And let's not forget Peggy and Dr. Kirkland. Their engagement is supposed to be a triumph, a moment of joy after years of struggle, but Kirkland's mother will not make things easy. Her disdain for Peggy, combined with her determination to control her son's future, will transform what should be a celebration into yet another war. For Peggy, who has already endured so much pain and injustice, this constant interference will feel like yet another test of her resilience. And for Kirkland, it will force him to choose between the woman he loves and the family he was born into. Their story may provide moments of tenderness, but make no mistake, it will also reveal the ugly side of privilege and prejudice, reminding us that even in matters of the heart, nothing comes without a cost in the Gilded Age. All of these threads search for his assassin, Bertha's rivalry with Mrs. Winterton, Oscar's reckless alliance, Marion and Larry's wedding, Peggy and Kirkland's engagement are not separate stories. They are pieces of a puzzle, each one feeding into the other, each one tightening the noose around the Russells. Because the truth is, the assassination attempt was never just about George. It was about what he represents: power, wealth, and the unstoppable rise of new money in a world ruled by old traditions. Whoever tried to kill him was not only trying to end his life, but to send a message that the Russells do not belong, that their reign will not go unchallenged. And as season 4 unfolds, we will discover that message has echoes in every storyline. From Bertha's desperate fight to hold her crown, to Peggy's struggle for love in a society determined to silence her. By the time we reach the heart of season 4, the lines between friend and foe will blur beyond recognition. George's quest for truth will bring him face to face with people he once trusted, forcing him to question not just their loyalty, but his own judgment. Bertha's battles will push her to limits she never imagined, forcing her to consider whether she can truly be the woman George needs without sacrificing the very ambition that defines her. And society itself, with its balls, its scandals, and its whispered betrayals, will become a powder keg waiting to explode. The question is not just who tried to kill George Russell, but who will still be standing when the smoke clears. The real storm of season 4 begins not in the ballroom or on the opera stage, but in the corridors of power where whispers turn into daggers. George's empire, though vast and unshaken to the outside world, suddenly finds itself under siege by forces he cannot fully see. Someone has studied his every move, his every deal, and his every weakness, and now they strike with precision. But the question remains, is this an enemy George crushed years ago, resurfacing for revenge? Or is the betrayer sitting closer, inside his trusted circle, wearing a mask of loyalty? The Gilded Age has always been about wealth and spectacle, but this season, it twists into a game of survival where secrets are currency, and one wrong step could bring everything crashing down. Bertha, ever ambitious, senses the danger but refuses to retreat. If anything, she presses forward harder, as if daring society itself to challenge her rise. Her gamble is breathtaking. Every event she hosts, every alliance she forges is a carefully laid move in her war for dominance. Yet even as she ascends, there are shadows creeping behind her, and the possibility that George's betrayal of her, whether intentional or forced, will cut deeper than any rejection from the old money elite. What happens when the husband who built her throne becomes the man who shakes it? Will Bertha fight for him, or fight against him? Meanwhile, the younger generation is no longer content to simply play their roles. Larry, Marion, and others find themselves torn between duty to family and the pull of new ideas, forbidden loves, and dangerous temptations. Their choices, though personal, ripple outward into the larger web of power, giving George's enemies new weapons to use against him. Every stolen glance, every whispered promise, becomes another crack in the grand facade of the Russell Empire. The old rules of society, obedience, silence, tradition, are breaking apart, leaving chaos in their place. And in the midst of all this, the attempted murder of George becomes a symbol, a warning that no fortune, no mansion, and no influence can shield them from what's coming. If the elite thought they were untouchable, this season proves otherwise. The attack is not the end, but the beginning. A spark that ignites rivalries stretching across boardrooms, parlors, and even families themselves. By the time the smoke clears, George will have to decide who he can trust and who must be destroyed, no matter the cost. Because in the Gilded Age, betrayal is the truest luxury. and only those willing to pay its price will survive. But just when you think the storm has reached its peak, the Gilded Age Season 4 story twists into something far darker than anyone could have expected. The glittering parties, the dazzling gowns, the power plays of the ritual of it hides a truth no one wants to admit. George Russell is not just fighting for his wealth, his marriage, or his reputation. He is fighting for his very survival. Because the attempt on his life is not an isolated act of violence. It is the beginning of something bigger, a secret war that threatens to bring the entire upper-class society crashing down. Every alliance will be tested, every loyalty will fracture, and every secret will be dragged into the light. And at the very center of this whirlwind stands Bertha, torn between love and ambition, between protecting her husband and seizing the crown she believes is rightfully hers. The grand mansions that once stood as symbols of power now feel like cages filled with whispers and conspiracies behind velvet curtains and candlelit corridors. Names are spoken, deals are made, and threats are whispered with deadly intent. Who tried to kill George? Was it a rival tycoon, desperate to claim his empire? Was it a politician silenced by George's refusal to bend? Or, in the most chilling theory of all, was it someone inside his own home, someone close enough to know his every move, every weakness, every shadow? Season 4 will not give away the truth easily. Instead, it will drag us through layers of betrayal, forcing us to question every smile, every glance, and every handshake. And then, there is Bertha's betrayal, the betrayal that no one saw coming. She has always stood by George, but in season 4, her hunger for acceptance at the highest levels of society will push her to cross lines she once swore she never would. Will she turn her back on the man who built her empire? The man who gave her everything, simply for the promise of sitting beside the elite families who despise her? Or is there a deeper, more dangerous game at play, one where Bertha sacrifices George not for ambition, but for survival? This is the heartbreak, the suspense, and the fire that the Gilded Age Season 4 promises to deliver. Because in this world of silks and chandeliers, betrayal is the deadliest weapon of all. One life has already been targeted, one bullet has already been fired, but the war has only just begun. Secrets will burn, lies will unravel, and the powerful will fall. And when the truth is finally revealed, it will not just change George and Bertha, it will shatter the very foundations of society itself. Season 4 is not just about who tried to kill George. It is about who will survive when the world of the Gilded Age finally collapses under the weight of its own ambition.